California faces a massive budget crisis, but Governor Gavin Newsom doesn't plan to actually address it. Coming up, I'll give you the 10 biggest fatal flaws in Newsom's approach to the budget and how you're going to end up paying the price, plus what we're doing to fight back. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California, and surprise, surprise, California faces a massive budget crisis. Haven't we been here before? Absolutely. These liberal politicians in Sacramento, they are worse than drunken sailors, absolutely out of control with their spending addiction, and they don't seem to be willing to stop their bad habits. They just simply want you to pay more in the form of higher taxes. Governor Gavin Newsom released his revised budget plan this past week, and there are 10 fatal flaws in this budget that you need to know about because ultimately he is angling to force you to pay more and receive less. He doesn't really want to address the fiscal crisis, and the liberal media in California, of course, is not holding him accountable. So I figure we would let you know the top 10 problems or scams with Governor Gavin Newsom's proposed budget. First, let me start out by letting you know that we've been calling this out for years. We've been warning taxpayers that California's finances were completely unsustainable. We are seeing these politicians spend at a record pace, and the tax revenues simply cannot sustain the level of overly generous spending that they have ratcheted the budget up to. And this is both at the state and local levels. And they've always, kicked the can down the road with accounting gimmicks and basically said, oh, well, we'll deal with it later on, or somehow magically the economy will continue to grow. And now with their overly costly regulations, taxes, and mandates, we're seeing people flee the state of California, population flight. People with money are leaving the state because they can. People who don't have money and continue to need government services are the only ones remaining. And of course, you know about the hordes of illegal immigrants coming in for the free welfare. So there is an absolute perfect storm that has hit California. This channel, of course, has warned you and others for the past several years that this was going to happen. So let's take a look at what the headlines are in the media, the lying liberal media. Headline from the Associated Press: Governor Gavin Newsom proposes painful cuts to close California's growing budget deficit. Painful cuts. Have you heard about that in the media? In a moment, I'm going to go through these 10 scams, the 10 problems with Newsom's budget, and you'll realize that there are no painful cuts being made. There's only painful tax increases coming down the pike. So the Associated Press, always carrying the water for liberal politicians, talks about California's budget deficit is at least $45 billion. At least. We know that it's at least that because that's what Newsom is willing to admit today, but he's always been absolutely off on his numbers. So the first thing you need to know that's wrong with Newsom's budget is that he is using accounting gimmicks to hide the true size, the true scope of the problem. So that's problem number one, accounting gimmicks. He is not being honest about how big of a shortfall there is. And the accounting gimmicks basically come in the form of overestimating revenues that are coming in, underestimating expenses going out, and hiding the actual cost of providing government services by saying, well, we're not going to pay for the retiree healthcare costs that we're giving state and local government workers. We're not going to pay the true price of the pensions. So the accounting gimmicks are the first thing you need to know are a scam in this budget. He's not being honest. The budget deficit is not $45 billion. It's much more in the neighborhood of $100 billion plus when you true up for pension and retiree healthcare costs. And by the way, the Legislative Analyst's Office pegs it more at 60 to 70 billion. Now, the budget deficit that Newsom claims really has come about because of the intentional overspending by state politicians. So the second flaw in Newsom's budget is that he is lying to you as to why we are facing the shortfall. The reason why we're facing the shortfall is because revenues are declining below where they should be, because people are leaving the state, jobs are being destroyed. So rich people are leaving, people with money are leaving, and that tax increment is going along with them, as well as the inflation created by government officials at the federal and state level by their rampant spending and their overregulation of the economy. So that means that even government expenses are going up because of inflation. And, of course, the fact that they've just been ratcheting up the spending. A reporter asked Newsom about, why did you go from a record surplus a few years ago to, record deficits today? And Newsom had a laundry list of excuses, none of which had to deal with, we've spent too much money. That's the truth. We've spent too much money, but he's trying to shift the blame. And that's the second flaw in his budget. He's blaming the rainstorms in February for the shortfall. Now, we've been telling you and projecting a budget deficit for the past several years. The Legislative Analyst Office was harping about this for the past several years. But he says, oh, no, we had a lot of rain in February, a lot of natural disasters. Really? Listen in to his artful gaslighting.
We explained to Californians how we moved from a $100 billion surplus to such a significant deficit in just a matter of a few years.
These rain bombs in December, January, February.
Rain bombs in December, January, and February. The rain bombs fell from the sky.
February and March. These atmospheric rivers that led to federal declaration.
Rain bombs and atmospheric rivers are why we have a budget deficit, you asshat.
That led to FEMA and the IRS moving in a direction where we couldn't collect our taxes until, I believe, November 16th. That climate change has...
It's climate change. Climate change is why the fire insurance is being dropped for homeowners. Climate change explains the racism, the congestion on the traffic, and everything is always climate change. Everything is always an excuse.
Impacts well beyond those that are often promoted. I would consider our financial delays as just another example of why we need to tackle them. Another reason I'm looking forward to conversations that we'll be having next week.
Dishonest, absolutely unwilling to take responsibility for his reckless spending. The politicians did this. This fiscal crisis was created by the politicians, and Governor Gavin Newsom is the number one politician in the state. He is uniquely responsible, singularly responsible, along with the legislature. But he blames climate change because he knows the lying media in California will let him get away with shifting the blame. That's the second problem with the budget. The third problem with the budget, tax and fee increases. And what we're seeing there is the headline of the Cal Matters, Alexei Kosov says, big cuts, no new taxes, which both of these things are lies. We'll talk about the cuts, the fact that there are no cuts in just a moment, but no new taxes. Well, what he is doing is he's eliminating a variety of small business tax credits, which were designed to help small businesses survive the high tax environment in California. Because remember, these politicians always lie. They say, oh, rich people are going to pay the higher taxes. What we're going to do is put in place these credits so that the small businesses don't get hit by the big tax increase. It's only the rich people, the people over there behind the tree, the ones funding our campaigns. These tax credits off the table, removed. And so the impact will be felt by struggling small businesses and a whole host of fees. And then, of course, what's happening in November? They're putting a massive tax increase on the ballot in November and supporting those tax increases. And they're trying to gut Prop 13. So when the media says, oh, no taxes, it's on the ballot. How can you say they're not going to try to raise taxes when all you are looking at are these massive tax increases on the November ballot? We're also seeing a bunch of bonds being put on by state and local government on the November ballot. And we've seen the abuse of bonds in recent years, borrowing the credit card so that they can then shift money on the budget to the borrowed bond instruments to try to fill their budget gap. So yes, there are tax and fee increases in this budget, and you know damn well that that's going to be their message in November as to why they need to gut Prop 13. So that was number 3. Number 4, raiding reserves. We are seeing a massive raid on reserves in the state budget. Here is the discussion of the reserves from January, where he talks about the shifting of expenses from the state reserve funds to balance the budget. He's even raiding the fund, the environmental fund for recycling. He's borrowing and issuing an IOU against, you know, the 5 and 10 cent fees that you're paying when you buy beer or wine. They're borrowing against those quote unquote reserves when they shouldn't be touching those monies at all. So we're talking about billions of dollars in reserves that he has decided to raid in order to fill the budget hole. Another thing that he's doing, and you can put this as number 6 on the list, is he's deciding, well, there's a bunch of money that's not being spent, so we're just not going to spend that money. Well, hold on a second. How's that a painful cut? If you didn't spend money that's just sitting there, how can you consider that a, quote, painful cut? It's not currently going to anyone. It's not supporting any program, but that's a cut. Number 8, he's underfunding the pension. And the underfunding of the pension comes in the form of him wanting to issue a bond to cover pension payments that were supposed to pay down the pension debt of the state of California. He's supposed to be catching up on payments that weren't made in the past administrations. He's not only continuing to underfund the pension, but he's now taking those payments, those supplemental payments that they were supposed to be making, and saying, oh no, that covers this year's bill, underfunding the pension even more. He then says, number 7, vacant positions, or this is number 8, I believe. Shifting the blame was number 1. Accounting gimmicks number 2. Tax and free increases number 3. Rating reserves number 4. Unspent money was number 5. Number 6 was underfunding the pension. Number 7 is vacant positions. He has 15,000 state vacant positions, and he's just going to eliminate those. He considers those the painful cut. Wow. So draconian. You're giving pink slips to people who are not actually in jobs. You're just eliminating them on paper. We're going to talk a little bit about the last 3 deficits or problems or scams with this budget in just a moment. But I want to share with you some of the discussion in this Cal Matters article that highlights some of the problems I just mentioned. Because just don't take my word for it. It says the budget proposal that he released includes projects to reduce the budget for borrowing, internal borrowing, and funding delays and shifts for savings. That was most of the $17 billion that he proposed back in January. Then he goes into the additional proposals that he has for this year. It says $21.5 billion for this year. Budget proposal relies on dipping into state reserve accounts, including $12.12 billion from a rainy day fund. I guess that's why he says there's atmospheric rivers and, you know, rainstorms, rain bombs. Literally, he's dipping into the rainy day fund. $90 million from a safety net reserve. So that's over $13 billion right there, rating reserves. He wants to use $8.4 billion from a school reserve account. So that's an additional hit to the schools that should be, again, a reserve for true unexpected emergencies, not we spent too much in the budget. $19.1 billion is this unspent funding. Okay, so this is stuff that they said, oh, we're going to spend this in the future. But then they decide under Newsom's proposal, well, we're not going to spend this after all. Again, is that a painful cut? No, no one's currently receiving those dollars. It includes promises to give $2 billion for internet access, $1 billion, $820 million for healthcare workforce development, which again is for the unions, $7 billion for housing development. You're spending $1 million per unit, so maybe you should cut that first. $550 million for early education facilities. This is at a time when we're declining school enrollment in every school district. We have 940 school districts in the state of California. All of them have declining student enrollment. And so the question is, why are we building expanded facilities when, in fact, we're having declining enrollment? And there's no expectation that that's going to stop anytime soon, since people are fleeing the state. He cuts water storage. Now, here's the one cut that we shouldn't be touching, and that is water storage. That's something we desperately need. Nope, of course, that's gone. $13.7 billion in cuts to ongoing programs. Now, he says that he's hitting the middle class scholarship program by $510 million. Again, no existing student will be affected by that cut. What they wanted to do was expand to more students these free monies. They've just decided not to expand by as much. Does any of this sound painful to you? Again, stop me before I spend again and again. Well, maybe I won't spend again and again and again, but I'm going to continue to spend all this right here. He also talks about releasing prisoners. 4,600 prison beds will be shut down under this budget proposal. That'll save $81 million by releasing prisoners. He talks about slashing 10,000 vacant state positions. Again, these are not real workers. No pink slips get sent out. He's just in the budget simply getting rid of vacant positions. Again, does that live up to the painful cuts in the budget that the media is touting? I'll tell you what he doesn't do. What he doesn't do is go after illegal immigrant programs. In fact, Newsom's budget continues to fund free taxpayer-funded health care for all illegal immigrants in the state of California. He says, quote, "I think that's foundational, something I believe in. It's a core of who I think we are as a state and should be as a nation." It's offensive, Gavin, that you are running a state into financial ruin and you're willing to continue to put out billions of dollars for illegal immigrants to get free health care. It's offensive. It's fiscally reckless, but it is offensive that you're doing that. So the last three things I wanted to highlight were those three elements of what he is doing. So number one is shifting the blame. Number two, the accounting gimmicks. Number three, tax and free increases. Number four, rating reserves. Number five, unspent money. Number six, underfunding the pension. Number seven, vacant positions. Number eight, releasing criminals by cutting all those beds in prisons. Number nine, illegal immigrants still are going to get their welfare benefits in full, billions of dollars. The number 10 flaw with this budget is actually not Newsom. It's the liberal media refusing to do its job. Because Sacramento Bee says, or California Cal Matters says, big cuts, no new taxes, which is not true. Big cuts, where are the cuts? The only big cut I see in here, the water storage, $500 million, and releasing prisoners from state prison. No other big cuts, no painful. What was the Associated Press's headline? Gavin Newsom proposes painful cuts. Ooh, the horror of it. Vacant positions. Deciding not to spend as much as you had originally planned to spend next year. Painful cuts. No. This is nothing but gaslighting. Trying to make people think that he is resolute and on the job and leading and making the tough decisions. But he's not. He's not. He's just kicking the can down the road. At Reform California, we want to get legislators into the state legislature who will call out Gavin Newsom for his budget BS. We're not hearing Republicans take this governor to task in Sacramento, but we need to elect more principled fighters who will go through the budget, as I have, and explain step by step the various flaws. We're going to need your help to do that. So I'm asking you today to go online and sign up at reformcalifornia.org for our voter guide so you know which candidates we are supporting in the various seats in the state assembly and state senate in November. Just put your name in, your email, your phone, and zip code, and we will send you the voter guide in October when the ballots hit, and then you can share that with your neighbors, friends, and family. Also, please chip in a contribution so you can help us fight the battle in California to restore sanity to state politics and recruit, train, endorse, and support these worthy candidates and put them into office. Finally, like and subscribe to this video. Our latest stats show that of the people watching the videos, and we get millions of views each month, 85% of you are not subscribers. So I urge you, subscribe so that every day at 5 o'clock, you'll just get a quick notice that our latest episode has posted, and you can stay up to speed on California news and politics in a way that the liberal media in this state will never give you. Subscribe to this channel. Click like on this video. Until next time, Carl DeMaio, Chairman of Reform California. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and smash that notification button so you can stay up to date on all the developments in California news and politics. Also, please visit the website, reformcalifornia.org, for ongoing news coverage and to join one of our campaigns in the fight to take back our state. If you can, please sign up as a volunteer or chip in a contribution. This episode of Reform California with Carl DeMaio, paid for by Carl DeMaio for State Assembly 2024.